Hey folks, so we quit working on the Paccar for a little while just to kind of regain some sanity until so I'm on this X15 retrofit, and I had one active code, that differential pressure sensor, and I could not get the check engine light to come on. So I put a T-pin on the wire and it had power. Well, as you can see here, pin 71 and 72 ground. You have power from the accessory side off the ignition that feeds through the cluster, and here's the light bulbs here, and I had power on it, so I knew I wasn't getting the ground. So then I looked over at here coming off the battery. You follow this out to pin 49, 50, 51, 52, and 73, and there's no wire even in pin 49. I didn't look at pin 50, but let's kind of look at this. That's kind of weird. Why would they not put a wire? You know, the way I'm looking at this, so there's pin 49. This would be 48. There's 49. Actually, no, wait a second. What am I seeing here? So there's some returns on pin 50 and 51. Wait a second. Those are CAN wires. That's 20. If that's 24, am I seeing that right? Yeah, that's 24. Then this brown wire right here should be 48. Right here. And the one right there should be 49, and there's no wire in that. Yeah, 24, 48, 49. And they're saying here, what are they saying here? They're saying that there's a return on 50 and 51 and 52. I gotta dig a little further into this. Hang on, let me get my act together here. Well, it's not good. I mean, he can probably get by with it, but he's gonna have to keep a scanner on it. That check engine light is not gonna work. That ECM is not grounding that leg, and I just checked. I've got 49, 50, 51, 52, and 73. I just checked all those, and I've got ground on all those. That's the ground supply to the J2 port, and it's not grounding. It's not grounding. It's not grounding the pin 71 here. So there is a problem with this ECM, and I actually even took, I've got a wire in that pin right now. I got a wire in there on the ground on pin 73, and I've got it grounded right here. And I've still got power on my check engine light, and it should be grounded right now. And throwing the check engine light on, and it won't do it. The ECM is bad in it. And those guys were wiring stuff and hooking stuff, the wrong stuff, and it makes you wonder, did they screw the ECM up in it? I mean, now you're wondering about this other code. She's bringing it down a differential pressure sensor right now. Because that's not a circuit code there. You can look at that. And I've already checked the 5-volt reference and the signal return, and it's fine. This is 114B. Oh, why won't it bring it up? What the hell's the deal with that? Wonderful. Fault tree troubleshooting steps, maybe? No, it won't bring it up. Okay, that's nice. I'll have to get on QuickServe and look it up, but well, the fault finding must be working on this part, because this depth sensor, quality sensor was bad, and it cleared. All the other codes have cleared that I have fixed the wiring problems on, but you know, I noticed that when I had an active fault that the check engine light was on, and I knew I wired it. And then I checked my wiring and it's all wired correctly, and I can ground the wire up here, or it goes to the dash right here, and then the check engine light comes on. And then I've checked all grounds going to the ECM, they're all fine. That ECM is not grounding that check engine pin, which is pin 70 whatever, 172. So I mean, it's not detrimental to what's going on. I mean, he's just not going to know that he's going to have a problem there until, you know, that's the thing. You'd almost have to, you know, keep a scanner, and that's the thing that makes, I'll have to call him and ask him what he wants to do. But man, other than that, I'm actually, I know it looks like a mess right now, but I know that that's wired correctly and all that good stuff, and there's no problem there. There's all the grounds are there, all the powers are there, so obviously it's not grounding that check engine light. I wonder, there's nothing in features and parameters, is there, that maybe that's telling it not to come on or something? I can't imagine that. I don't know of anything on features and parameters. I mean, obviously there's a wire there, and anything that I've noticed on this project so far, if there wasn't a wire there in the ECM, that means they had it multiplexed. Hang on. Hey guys, trying to doing a regen on this X15. Getting really close to being done here. Problem I had though, I had to buy, of course, that was bad, the quality sensor, and then the DPF differential pressure sensor was bad too. I tried to get it to clear up and it just wouldn't. I couldn't get it to do a forced regen because it was saying that the service brake was applied. So what's going on there is they're running all that through the CECU control module. So I'll show you here if you can hear me. See, I got a wire here. This wire's going down to pin 44 on the ECM. Okay? For some reason, when I push the brake pedal, if I can't communicate with the CECU controller with Cummins Insight, but I can with the Texas unit. Well, for some reason with Cummins Insight, it says it's always depressed. So on the Texas unit, if I communicate with the CECU controller, it tells me it's off. So the engine thinks the brake pedal's being pushed and won't let it do the regen. So I pushed the brake pedal, I had that wire there, and I ran an extension wire around here where I could push the brake pedal and take my meter on the alligator clip on the wire that I had attached to that to see what actually was going on there, and it's not grounding that when I hit that brake pedal switch. I got to figure out why it's not doing that. So the thing is, guys, it's a normally closed switch. With the brake pedal off, that should be closed, that should be grounded. When you hit the brake pedal, I'd have to get on quick serve. I don't know if it'll, well, let me enter the site. I'm about to plug this thing in here a little bit. Log in. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Come on, wakey wakey. Here's a wiring schematic. Takes a while for this thing to populate. Here's our switches here, guys. Let me blow it up one more time. Okay, so here's your brake pedal position switch 1. And you'll notice it's a normally closed switch. So that should have ground on it right now without the jumper wire on there grounding it, and it's not. So I got to figure out why it's not doing that. And then you got this. Where's it at? Not seeing it now. Yeah, you got this one here too. Brake pedal position switch 2, rear axle ratio switch. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with that. I get these problems figured out and the emission system's working fine, we'll have her whipped. I'm going to make sure things aren't catching on fire or anything like that. Why? There we go. She's coming up to temp. I want to see also what my SCR catalyst is doing. Kind of noisy. I got the intake off right there. Definitely putting out the heat. She's got 900 degrees on the inlet. She's climbing up. One thing I don't like about the Texa unit when you're doing a regen, it doesn't, you can go into the SCR system test and it'll show everything, but I was having problems with that too. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with that. It keeps saying that the barometric pressure isn't right and it won't let me do an SCR efficiency test. So that's the thing, guys, when you're doing these things, you got to make sure all this shit works, everything, before you send it away. It cost him a lot of money, but it's going to cost him a lot more money when it gets down there, and those guys down there aren't going to know what to do with it. I'm not running them down, but when somebody's done a custom wiring job like this, they're not going to know what the hell to do and how I wired it, you know. So I'm going to let this thing do its thing and regen. All the gauges are working. I got a code in the ECM for something. I see that check engine light's on. To figure out what's going on there. Coolant gauge, ammeter's working, tach's working, oil pressure, primary, secondary, fuel gauge is working. I got to wire a transmission temp sensor back into the, I got to wire it to the CECU because I got a code in there for that. And I don't know what I'm going to do. The ABS controller has a VIN mismatch because it's VIN matched to the ECM. So there's a VIN mismatch. So I don't know what we're going to do. You're probably going to have to live with that. I don't know how to get around that right now, to be honest with you. That's a programming issue. I got to go get the charger for this laptop. I don't want this thing dying on me while it's regenning. Okay, so I was trying to resolve this service brake pressure switch application problem that it won't let it. I actually did the regen, but you know, I had the wire jumpered. So what's going on here is, wait, the laptop's in here, not over here. What's happening here is what you got here is you've got a signal wire coming from the ECM on pin 44, and it's a normally closed switch. So there's a little confusion here because on this wiring schematic here, As you can see here, here's our service brake switch right here. It says released, depressed, released, okay? So, yeah, that's the problem is it's not a 2-wire switch. Because all you're doing is when it's normally closed switch, it's grounding it to the ECM. There's a constant ground, or actually a constant supply of power, 5-volt supply from the ECM on pin 44. And if you had a switch that had a ground to it that was normally closed, it would ground that. And when you push the brake pedal down, it opens that circuit, so you don't have the 5 volts, and you're actually, you actually have the, well, you would actually have the 5 volts, and you're not grounding it anymore. The problem that we've got here is they're running their brake switch off this right here, and I just verified that. They're actually running it off a 3-wire pressure transducer. So the only thing that I can think to do right now, I'm gonna call up to Fleet Pride right now, is if I can cut this line right here, and if I can find a normally closed switch that I can plumb into the center of that, and I can just run a wire back up to the J50 plug that plugs into the P103 harness, and then I'll have a constant ground going to pin, well, the ground needs to come down off pin 34 and then come down to the switch, and then pin 20 is the signal wire coming from pin 44 on the ECM, but that pin 20 would come down to the switch too. Let me call, now I finally figured out what in the hell was going on. I was like, why is this not working? Because we have different systems here. Okay, should have got rid of that one. I still got to run a transmission oil temperature sensor up in here. Oh shit, I should have exited out of that before you just turned it off there, moron. All right, guys, well, let's see here. Let's get established communication with it. No, the only thing we really got left to tackle on the wiring is get that. Oh, I got to run a transmission temperature, so there's no codes in the CECU. Let's connect. Yeah, there's a transmission temperature signal not there, so I'm gonna have to go. Well, you know, I don't understand that. So if that's going to the CECU, let's think about this. It still had to come through that dash harness though. So where, huh? It must be on that loom somewhere. The pigtail, I don't think it's going to be too bad. Oh yeah. Okay, now it might throw the 1117. His batteries are weak because I guess this truck's been sitting for a good year or so. So it might throw 1117 code. Tractor ABS. So we got a tractor ABS fault code because there's a VIN mismatch. My soldering gun's gonna fall off on the ground. Okay, if you notice, there is no check engine light anymore, and there is no fault codes in the ECM. We've got a clean bill of health, but I do have to get, we're gonna have to run a transmission temperature sensor to get rid of the codes in the CECU. There's a code for transmission temperature sensor in the CECU. I think that's pretty damn well it for wiring on this engine. Waiting for the air to build up. The fan should shut off here pretty soon. Let's watch it. About 100 psi here. Let's turn on his marker lights so we can see those gauges. Thought I had the Regen thing. Okay. Oh. Hang on, yeah. I got everything loose right now because I've been wiring in here. That fan ought to be shutting off any time. Okay, that fan's off. Let's check our manual fan switch. Make sure our fan kicks on. That would be right here. Okay, fan's on. Turn it off. Yeah, can't tell which button I'm pushing here. Fan shut off. Okay, cruise on, Jakes. Okay, all that stuff is wired. I'm liking that. I like it when I see no fault codes. Throttle works. Engine sounds really good. Still got to put the tip on the exhaust back here. And I got to pull this off here. We'll unbolt this. Okay guys, well, I'm going to get in here and see what pins the transmission. I got to go down to this section here and we'll run a couple wires for the transmission temperature signal, ISX engine right here. So you're going to see it should be right here, firewall, ignition power, transmission oil temperature return is on pin 25. Where is the signal at? Main transmission oil temp sensor. That's on 26. Well, that's pretty simple, huh? So, yeah. Those will come from, well, let's see here. Bam, it's going right here. Transmission temp sensor. And you won't have to wire anything to the ECM on the engine because that's going to go straight up to this firewall connector, and it should already be wired back to the CECU controller. So we're going to go ahead and take care of that. So let's go ahead and turn off the key. That way we don't get a bunch of fault codes by oh, I should take care of that. Okay. So yeah, that was kind of a tricky thing, trying to figure out why that brake system wasn't the service brake thing. And I'll show you what I'm going to do. As you can see, here's the 3-wire transducer right here. When you press on the brake pedal, this actually sends a signal to the CECU controller, this 3-wire transducer, that the brake pedal is being applied, and the contacts on the switch out here you got constant power in. I think one goes to stop lamp and the other to trailer to send I guess it's for brake lights more than likely. Anyway, but I for the life of me, I thought this one was set up, because if you read quick serve on the old engine serial number, it tells you in quick serve that it's operating off of a normally closed 2-pole switch, just like the new engine. Well, it's not. It's running off a 3-wire transducer. So yeah, trying to wire a normally closed 2-pole switch from the ECM and trying to make it work in conjunction with a 3-wire pressure transducer, well, that ain't never gonna work. So what we're gonna have to do, which I forgot to tell you, is we're gonna use the same line, this application line. I'll cut it back here and I'll put a T in it, and then I'll just put that switch, and then I'll run my wires. I'll show you, because I'm fixing to start straightening all this up. Now that I know that I'm done with this is all gonna get tidied up to where it looks right. And then right here behind this, I'll find the wires that correspond to that, and then I'll just run the wires I'll cut them, and I'll just run them 2 wires down to that switch right from this plug back here to the switch. And that way, because you know, you want him, if he's got a driver in this thing and he doesn't know about, you want that cruise to quit when the brakes push. You don't, you know, I don't want to be responsible for somebody getting run over because the guy didn't, you know, the guy hit the brake pedal and panicked and wouldn't reach down and hit the switch on the dash to turn the cruise off. So anyway, okay guys, so that's the end of this video. This one's almost done.